Part 3, Battle of New Hampshire. The Empire of Frostreach, after having aided the state of South Carolina and brought it willingly under their control, now decides to invade and attempt to conquer the state of New Hampshire. The soldiers of the Ice Legion, led by Sir Frostbeard himself, march through the snow-covered landscape, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. They are accompanied by the Cryoken, their icy blue skin glistening in the moonlight. The soldiers are well equipped and disciplined, their armor polished to a gleaming sheen, their weapons sharpened and ready for battle. The Cryoken, on the other hand, seem almost ethereal in their grace and agility as they glide across the snow. Their destination is the state of New Hampshire, which has thus far resisted the Empire's advances. Sir Frostbeard is determined to change that. He knows that the key to success lies in surprise and speed. The Ice Legion must strike swiftly and decisively before the enemy can muster a proper defense. As they approach the borders of New Hampshire, they are met with a flurry of activity. Scouts report back with information about enemy movements and defensive positions. Sir Frostbeard studies the maps, plotting his strategy. He decides to divide his forces, sending one contingent around the western flank while he leads the main force through the eastern pass. The Cryoken, with their supernatural abilities, will play a crucial role in both maneuvers, ensuring that they remain hidden from enemy detection. The soldiers of the Ice Legion prepare for battle, their armor clanging as they move. They are a formidable force, well-disciplined and experienced. Sir Frostbeard rides among them, his cloak billowing in the wind, his sword sheathed at his side. He addresses his men before they move forward, reminding them of the honor they bear as soldiers of the Empire. He tells them of the courage and sacrifice shown by the people of South Carolina and Vermont, and how they too must be willing to risk all for the greater good. The Cryoken, silent and eerie, flanks Sir Frostbeard. Their presence serves as a reminder of the supernatural power that the Empire wields. They are the embodiment of the cold, unyielding might that has brought the world to its knees. The soldiers of the Ice Legion, while skilled and disciplined, know that they are but pawns in a larger game. It is the Cryoken who hold the true power, and they wield it without mercy. As the sun begins to rise over the eastern horizon, the main force of the Ice Legion emerges from the pass. Sir Frostbeard can see the shock and fear in the eyes of the New Hampshire soldiers as they behold the massive army before them. They are outnumbered and outmatched, and they know it. The battle is swift and brutal, with the Ice Legion using their superior numbers and discipline to overwhelm the defenders. The Cryoken, meanwhile, dance through the fray, using their abilities to freeze soldiers in place or hurl them through the air with icy tendrils. The western flank, led by one of Sir Frostbeard's most trusted captains, meets with equal success. They manage to sneak past the enemy's defenses and launch a surprise attack on their supply lines. Caught off guard, the New Hampshire forces are quickly overwhelmed, and their supplies fall into the hands of the Empire. With their lines of supply cut off, the New Hampshire army begins to collapse in on itself. As the battle rages on, Sir Frostbeard surveys the field from atop a hill, his keen eyes taking in every detail. He watches as the Cryoken dance through the enemy ranks, their ethereal forms glowing in the morning light. He sees the determination in the faces of his soldiers, the discipline that has been instilled in them over countless campaigns. He knows that victory is within their grasp. Suddenly, a lone figure emerges from the midst of the New Hampshire army. It is their leader, a fierce warrior woman named Lady Winter. She calls upon her troops to rally, to stand firm against the onslaught. Her words carry across the battlefield, and for a moment, it seems as if the tide may turn. Sir Frostbeard sees this and, understanding the danger that Lady Winter poses, orders his most trusted lieutenant to deal with her personally. The lieutenant nods and, with a small contingent of soldiers, sets off across the snowy field to confront the formidable warrior woman. Meanwhile, the Cryoken continue their deadly dance among the enemy ranks, their icy breath freezing soldiers in place and their ethereal forms rendering them all but invisible. They move with a grace that belies their supernatural abilities, making it difficult for even the most seasoned of New Hampshire soldiers to predict their next move. The confrontation between Lady Winter and Sir Frostbeard's lieutenant plays out across the snowy field. The two warriors circle each other warily, sizing up their opponent. Their soldiers, meanwhile, clash in a desperate battle for control of the terrain. The lieutenant, recognizing the danger that Lady Winter poses, attempts to engage her in close combat, but she deftly deflects his blows and counters with a series of brutal attacks. The Cryoken, sensing the intensity of the fight, alter their tactics. They begin to focus their icy power on Lady Winter, seeking to slow her down or even incapacitate her. The icy tendrils that snake out from their bodies dance around her, carving intricate patterns in the snow as they attempt to ensnare her. Lady Winter, however, is no stranger to the supernatural powers of the Empire, and she uses her own abilities to deflect the attacks and continue her relentless advance. Sir Frostbeard, watching from a distance, realizes that he must intervene personally if they are to defeat Lady Winter and secure victory. He gathers a small group of his most trusted soldiers and sets off across the snowy field, heading straight for the heart of the battle. As they approach, they can hear the clash of steel on steel and the cries of the wounded. The confrontation between Lady Winter and the lieutenant has reached a critical point. Both warriors are battered and bloodied, their armor dented and their weapons blunted. The soldiers of the Ice Legion and the New Hampshire Army are locked in a desperate struggle for control of the field, with neither side willing to give ground. Sir Frostbeard and his elite soldiers arrive just in time to see Lady Winter land a crushing blow on the lieutenant, driving him to the snow-covered ground. The Ice Legion roars in anger, surging forward in a renewed effort to push back the New Hampshire forces. The Cryoken, sensing the change in the tide, alter their tactics once more, focusing their icy powers on the enemy's front-line soldiers and using their ethereal forms to confuse and disorient them. Lady Winter, her eyes blazing with determination, takes advantage of the confusion to lead a charge against the center of the Ice Legion's formation. Her soldiers, driven by her fierce leadership, fight with a desperation born of knowing that their only hope lies in defeating the Empire's elite force. The battle becomes a chaotic melee with soldiers fighting hand-to-hand in the snow. Sir Frostbeard, seeing the opportunity, rallies his own troops and leads them in a counter-charge against Lady Winter. The two forces collide in a furious clash of steel and ice, with soldiers on both sides falling wounded or dying. The air is thick with the cries of the wounded and the clash of steel on armor. The Cryoken, sensing the desperation of the battle, use their powers to their fullest extent. They swirl and dance through the ranks of soldiers, leaving behind trails of icy mist that freeze soldiers solid, creating obstacles for both sides to navigate. At the same time, they launch icy projectiles from their mouths, seeking to strike down any commander who might turn the tide of battle. Sir Frostbeard, dueling with Lady Winter, is forced to defend himself against a flurry of blows that would shatter even the strongest of armor. His ice-encrusted sword slashes through the air, meeting her icy blade with a resounding clang. They circle each other, each seeking an opening, each aware that the fate of the battle rests on their shoulders. The Cryoken, sensing the intensity of the duel, alter their tactics once more. They swirl around the battlefield, their ethereal forms barely visible against the swirling snow. They weave in and out of the ranks of soldiers, using their icy powers to freeze soldiers solid where they stand, creating a slick, treacherous surface for both sides to fight on. At the same time, they launch icy projectiles from their mouths, seeking to distract and disorient the commanders. Sir Frostbeard, his breath coming in ragged gasps, parries another of Lady Winter's blows with a mighty swing of his sword. The impact sends a shudder through his armor, but he holds firm. He glances over at the lieutenant, now lying unconscious in the snow, and is reminded of the stakes of this battle. He must not fail. The Cryoken, their icy forms glinting in the sunlight, dance around the battlefield, weaving in and out of the combatants. Their eerie laughter fills the air as they launch another volley of icy projectiles, striking soldiers and commanders alike. One of the projectiles hits Lady Winter, glancing off her shoulder, causing her to stumble slightly. Sir Frostbeard seizes the opportunity, launching a furious assault that forces her back several steps. The Ice Legion, emboldened by Sir Frostbeard's success, surges forward once more. They press their advantage, seeking to surround and overwhelm the New Hampshire forces. The soldiers of the New Hampshire army, however, are equal to the task. They form a tight phalanx, shields locked together, and hold firm against the onslaught. The Kryokan, sensing the renewed determination of the Ice Legion, alter their tactics yet again. They swirl and twirl through the air, their ethereal forms blending with the snowfall. They weave in and out of the combatants, using their icy powers to freeze soldiers solid where they stand, creating a treacherous, slippery surface for both sides to fight on. At the same time, they launch icy projectiles from their mouths, seeking to strike down any commander who might rally their forces and turn the tide of battle. Sir Frostbeard, his sword arm aching from the exertion of his previous attack, backs away from Lady Winter, giving himself some room to breathe. He glances around the battlefield, taking in the chaos and carnage. The Kryokan dance through the air, their laughter echoing eerily off the snow-covered mountains. He spots the lieutenant, still unconscious in the snow, and is reminded once more of the stakes of this battle. He must not fail. The Ice Legion, emboldened by the Kryokan's tactics, renew their assault on the New Hampshire forces. Soldiers clash in hand-to-hand combat, their weapons clanging and ringing as they struggle for purchase on the icy surface. The air is thick with the stench of blood and sweat, and the cries of the wounded fill the air. Taking advantage of the slippery surface, Sir Frostbeard charges toward Lady Winter, using his superior agility to evade her clumsy attacks. The two commanders engage in a dizzying dance of blades, their movements so swift and precise that the soldiers below them are left breathless. The Kryokan, impressed by their display, reluctantly withdraw from the battle, leaving the final outcome to the two dueling commanders. The Ice Legion, emboldened by the Kryokan's withdrawal, launches a desperate assault on the New Hampshire forces. Soldiers from both sides fall beneath the weight of the attack, their bodies piling up in the snow. The air is filled with the sounds of battle, the clash of steel on ice, the cries of the wounded, and the hoarse shouts of commanders struggling to be heard above the din. Sir Frostbeard, his sword arm tiring from the relentless onslaught of Lady Winter's attacks, manages to land a blow that sends her stumbling back several steps. He takes the opportunity to disengage from their duel, turning his attention to New Hampshire soldiers. He rallies the Ice Legion forces, urging them to press their advantage and turn the tide of battle. The Kryokan, sensing the renewed energy in the Ice Legion, return to the fray. They dance through the air, their icy breath freezing the air round them. They target the New Hampshire commanders, launching a flurry of icy projectiles in an attempt to disable or kill them. The air fills with the whistling sound of their attacks, making it difficult for the soldiers to hear orders or even to breathe. The battleground becomes a chaotic mess of flying ice and struggling soldiers. The Ice Legion surges forward, their numbers overwhelming the New Hampshire forces. Sir Frostbeard, emboldened by the Kryokan's support, leads the charge, his sword ablur as he cleaves through the enemy ranks. The New Hampshire soldiers, outnumbered and outmatched, struggle to maintain their formation, let alone launch any effective counterattacks. Lady Winter, her face contorted in rage, tries to rally her forces, but the weight of the Ice Legion is too great. She ducks and weaves through the melee, searching for an opening to strike at Sir Frostbeard. Her eyes narrow as she spots him engaged in a furious duel with one of her commanders. Seeing an opportunity, she readies her sword and charges towards them, hoping to turn the tide of the battle by ending Sir Frostbeard's life. The Kryokan, sensing her intentions, dart towards her, their icy breath threatening to freeze her in place. She manages to fend them off with quick parries and thrusts, but the distraction gives Sir Frostbeard the opening he needs. With a mighty blow, he knocks his opponent's sword from her hand, sending her stumbling back. He then turns to face Lady Winter, their swords locked in a deadly embrace. The Ice Legion, emboldened by their commander's duel, surge forward once more, pushing the New Hampshire forces back towards the tree line. The air is thick with the stench of battle, and the cries of the wounded fill the air. The Kryokan, sensing the tide of the battle turning, launch a new assault, hurling icy projectiles at the New Hampshire commanders in an attempt to disable them. Sir Frostbeard and Lady Winter continue their duel, their blades moving faster than the eye can follow. The Cryoken dart around them, seeking an opening to strike, but Lady Winter's skill with her sword proves too much for them. As the two commanders struggle, the rest of the battlefield becomes a blur of movement and bloodshed. Tired and wounded from the long battle, Lady Winter suddenly finds herself surrounded by Cryoken. In desperation, she calls upon her elemental allies to aid her in the fight against the Ice Legion. A gust of wind howls through the battlefield, sending soldiers and commanders alike stumbling to the ground. The snow begins to swirl around Lady Winter, forming a protective shield that deflects the Cryoken's icy projectiles. With renewed strength, she lashes out at the Ice Legion, her sword moving faster than ever before. The air is filled with the clash of steel on ice and the shouts of commanders as the tide of battle begins to turn once more. Sir Frostbeard, sensing the change in momentum, turns his attention back to Lady Winter. Their blades clash in a frenzied display of skill, each trying to gain the upper hand. The Cryoken, unable to get past her windshield, dance around them, searching for an opening. As they do so, they spot an opportunity to strike at the New Hampshire commanders. With a deafening howl, they launch themselves at the commanders, their icy claws extended. The New Hampshire forces, reeling from the sudden assault, struggle to maintain their formation. Sir Frostbeard and Lady Winter continue their duel, their swords singing a deadly symphony as they clash. The Cryoken, emboldened by their initial success, press their attack, relentlessly harassing the New Hampshire soldiers. The air is filled with the whistling sound of their icy breath and the clash of metal on ice as the battle rages on. The tide of the battle ebbs and flows, as each side takes turns gaining the upper hand. Lady Winter, her elemental allies at her command, continues to wreak havoc among the Ice Legion, while Sir Frostbeard fights valiantly to protect his men. The Cryoken, unable to break through Lady Winter's windshield, shift their focus to the other New Hampshire commanders, swarming around them like hungry wolves. The snow-covered battlefield becomes a scene of chaos and carnage, as soldiers and commanders alike struggle to maintain their footing in the slippery conditions. The sound of clashing steel and shattering ice fills the air, accompanied by the cries of the wounded and the guttural shouts of commanders. The bitter cold numbs the fingers and toes of both sides, slowing their movements and taxing their endurance. Sir Frostbeard, fighting with renewed determination, manages to break through Lady Winter's windshield, landing a powerful blow that sends her staggering back. The Ice Legion, sensing their commander's advantage, surge forward once more, pressing their attack on the New Hampshire forces. The Cryoken, emboldened by their success, launch a coordinated assault on the remaining commanders, seeking to disable them and turn the tide of the battle. The New Hampshire soldiers, fighting against the relentless onslaught of ice and snow, struggle to maintain their formation. They are pushed back further into the tree line, where the underbrush provides some cover from the Ice Legion's attacks. Lady Winter, regaining her footing, calls upon her elemental allies once more, creating a whirlwind of snow and ice that engulfs the Cryoken, making them momentarily lose their footing. Sir Frostbeard, growing desperate, summons a powerful ice elemental from the depths of the crystal caverns beneath the battlefield. This massive creature, made of solid ice and snow, towers over the battlefield, causing awe and terror among the New Hampshire soldiers, but also providing a formidable advantage in the fight against Lady Winter and her elemental allies. The ice elemental marches slowly towards the center of the battlefield, its massive form shaking the ground as it advances. The Ice Legion parts before it, forming a protective wedge around their new champion. Sir Frostbeard, emboldened by the creature's presence, launches a new offensive, aiming to push the New Hampshire forces back into a disorganized retreat. The battle reaches a climactic moment as Sir Frostbeard and Lady Winter engage in a final, epic duel atop the back of their elemental champions. Their blades clash furiously, while the Ice Legion and the New Hampshire forces wage a desperate struggle for control of the battlefield below. The outcome of their duel will determine the fate of both sides in the war. The Cryoken, emboldened by the presence of the ice elemental, renew their attack on the New Hampshire commanders. They swarm around them like a cloud of stinging insects, their icy claws seeking to rend flesh and freeze bone. The remaining commanders, forced to defend themselves on all sides, struggle to maintain their formation. Lady Winter, her elemental allies at her command, fights valiantly to protect her soldiers. She summons a wind of Arctic air that freezes the ground beneath the Ice Legion's feet, slowing their advance and giving the New Hampshire forces a brief respite. The Cryoken, however, are undeterred by the cold, their icy breath still chilling the air around them. Sir Frostbeard, sensing the vulnerability of his elemental allies, launches a coordinated attack, directing the Ice Legion to focus their efforts on Lady Winter's windshield. The ice shards and crystals rain down upon her elemental companions, weakening their defenses and forcing them to retreat momentarily. Taking advantage of the situation, Sir Frostbeard leaps from the back of his elemental steed and engages Lady Winter in a fierce battle at close range. Their blades clash and sparks fly as they circle each other, their elemental champions looming large behind them. The ice elemental, sensing its master's command, lashes out with a massive ice claw, attempting to crush Lady Winter and her remaining elemental allies beneath its icy grasp. The ice elemental, under Sir Frostbeard's control, manages to overpower Lady Winter's windshield and cripple her elemental allies. With their enemies weakened, the Ice Legion presses forward, surrounding the New Hampshire commanders and forcing them into a desperate last stand. As the battle comes to a close, it becomes clear that the fate of the war lies in the hands of the exhausted, bloodied commanders on both sides. Sir Frostbeard, confident in his ice elemental's strength, focuses his attention on Lady Winter. The two duel fiercely, their blades clashing like thunder in the cold winter air. The ice elemental, sensing its master's intent, continues to lay waste to Lady Winter's remaining elemental allies, leaving her increasingly isolated. With her elemental allies destroyed, Lady Winter focuses her attention on Sir Frostbeard. She summons a powerful gust of wind that knocks him off his feet, sending him tumbling across the battlefield. As he struggles to regain his footing, she charges towards him, her icy sword raised high. The ice elemental, sensing its master in danger, turns to face Lady Winter. The two elemental champions clash, their icy limbs slashing and clawing at each other. The New Hampshire forces, seeing their chance, launch a coordinated attack on the Ice Legion, seeking to weaken them before they can aid Sir Frostbeard. Lady Winter, her strength waning, leaps atop the ice elemental, attempting to wrest control from it. The elemental, however, is too powerful and too well trained. It tosses her aside with a careless swipe of its massive arm. In desperation, she summons a final blast of icy wind, hoping to freeze the ice elemental solid. The wind howls around the creature, enveloping it in a shroud of frost, but to no avail. The ice elemental, unyielding, shrugs off the onslaught of wind and ice, its master's grip finally broken. It turns its attention back to the New Hampshire forces, who have closed in on them. With a mighty roar, it lifts its massive form into the air, preparing to bring its icy might crashing down upon the enemy. Sir Frostbeard, regaining his footing, sees the dire situation his elemental ally is in. He knows that the fate of the Ice Legion and their war to conquer New Hampshire now rests on the outcome of this battle. He readies his sword, bellowing orders to his troops to aid the ice elemental in crushing their foes. Lady Winter, her elemental allies destroyed, stands alone against the might of the Ice Legion and Sir Frostbeard. She summons a final, powerful gust of wind, intent on dispersing the ice elemental's massive form. The wind howls around the creature, buffeting it from all sides, but its icy resolve holds firm. With a thunderous roar, the ice elemental swings its massive arm, slamming into Lady Winter with enough force to send her flying across the battlefield. She lands with a crunch, unconscious and defeated. The Ice Legion, emboldened by their victory, surges forward, engulfing the remaining New Hampshire forces. Sir Frostbeard, his sword still bloodied from the battle, stands atop the ice elemental, raising his arms in triumph. Today, we have conquered New Hampshire. he shouts to his victorious troops. From now on, this land shall be ruled by the might of the Ice Legion. The defeated New Hampshire commanders, their forces scattered and broken, are forced to retreat, leaving the Ice Legion to claim their new territory. Sir Frostbeard, confident in his elemental's abilities, begins to establish a stronghold in the heart of New Hampshire. The Ice Elemental, now free from the constraints of battle, returns to its natural state, crafting icy spires and towers that adorn the landscape.